Hello and a very good evening. A very good evening to our viewers who are watching here from across Southeast Asia. So I'm your host for this evening. I'm Hugo Tan from You Are Not Alone Southeast Asia Mental Health Initiative. And with us today is a very special guest on a very important topic that we are going to discuss today. And many of you across Southeast Asia are currently facing either your second or third wave of COVID. And a lot of you are being locked away from your offices, maybe all the time at home, and you're facing a renewed interest being affected by issues of mental and emotional instability. So today we're going to tackle a topic. We title it Trauma No More, Everyday Trauma and How You Can Get Better. So with us today is Shuee. Shuee is the founder of YANA. He's an internationally recognized clinical hypnotherapist, registered with the British Society of Clinical Hypnosis and the Malaysian Society of Clinical Hypnosis. Being an EXCO member of the MSCH, which is the Malaysian Society of Clinical Hypnosis, they play a role in shaping the future of clinical hypnotherapy. You know, in one thing in YANA is that we always want to bring you new solutions and the best practices that you can afford today. And Shuee has extensive experience in treating patients with all sorts of problems in life, from phobias, anxiety, to PTSD, from self-esteem issues to emotional and relationship breakdown. With this, please put our hands together. Is that we always want to bring you new solutions and the best practices that you can afford today. And Shuee has extensive experience in treating patients with all sorts of problems in life, from phobias, anxiety, to PTSD, from self-esteem issues to emotional and relationship. Shuee, how have you been doing recently? Please put our hands together. Is that we all want to bring you new solutions, the best practices that you can afford today. And Shuee has extensive experience in treating patients with all sorts of problems in life, phobias, anxiety, PTSD, from self-esteem issues to emotional and relationship.
Yes.
How have you been doing recently?
I'm so sorry. I'm just trying to do a little bit of tech stuff. So I've been really I've been pretty busy nowadays, especially after the CMCO has started here in Malaysia. And
I see.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me today, right here at Rotaract, One Asian.
Yes, always a pleasure to have you on board. And for those of you who are watching this, do remember to follow Shuee on Facebook. And of course, you can always follow You Are Not Alone, or YANA, on Facebook and also Instagram. So if you're watching this, there are a few key things that I would like to share with you that you can do right away, which is, if you're watching this, you can see this popcorn button right below your screen. And right. Okay. And you see this popcorn button. Make sure you click the popcorn button and start a watch party. By doing so, you can help us to reach more people that are in need to hear this conversation. Okay. With this, without further ado, I would like to invite Shuee to begin with her presentation. So the format that we have for tonight is that Shuee is going to do an introduction of what trauma is and how do we overcome it. And after her presentation, we are going to go into a wonderful kind of bringing your whether it is some disasters or situations or accidents or bullies, that you have faced in your workplace or school, something that keeps on playing at the back of your head, because we have an expert with you here today, and she can share with you some great tips on how you can get help. So with this, Shuee, let's see if you can start your,
Thank you very much. Thank you for calling me an expert as well. I appreciate that. So to my audience, just a little bit, today's topic, we are going to talk about everyday trauma. But before we go into that, I just want to give you an overview on who I am. All right, so my name is Shuee, and I am the founder of Yountherapy. I was also the founder of LCCH Therapy Center here in Malaysia. Both centers are hypnotherapy centers. I am a full-time clinical hypnotherapist, and I am listed at a few places as an independent therapist. For example, I'm at Unua Mind Wellness Hub. I'm also the treasurer, the EXCO member of the MSCH, the Malaysian Society of Clinical Hypnosis. I am also a lecturer at the London College of Clinical Hypnosis and a full member of the British Society of Clinical Hypnosis. So it's a long list of things, basically just to tell you who I am and what kind of qualifications I have. So a little bit of my journey before we go too deep about today's topic is I graduated from the University of Melbourne with a psychology degree. And after a few years, I was working in a corporate environment. I sort of felt that I wasn't too fulfilled with my current job. And so I decided to embark on the journey to go into clinical hypnosis. And that's where, if you see on the third image on the top right, that was my graduation with some of my very close classmates, which are all doctors right there. There is GPs, there are researchers, and we had amazing time. And at the bottom, you can see just a few photos of what I've been doing lately. So I'm, as I said, a full-time hypnotherapist, which means I see clients every single day for all sorts of problems. And I used to do that only face-to-face, but since the pandemic began, I started doing virtual therapy, and it's a very, very effective therapy. And so recently I opened my own little center in Selangor, PJ. So if any of you are interested, you can always drop by, let me know, and we could go on from there. So let's go right into today's topic, trauma. All right, so I'm not too sure how many of you know what trauma is. And so basically, a lot of us, I'm pretty sure you've heard of PTSD before, post-traumatic stress disorder. But before we even go into what is PTSD, I just want to talk a little bit about trauma. In our mind, PTSD is something very, very serious. Wouldn't you agree? But if you look at trauma by itself, trauma in the dictionary, it's called a deeply distressing and disturbing experience. And when I say that, it can really mean everything and anything that is deeply distressing and disturbing. So we can talk about things like accidents, like for example, now COVID. COVID is a very good example of a distressing event. A lot of us have known someone who has COVID, or somebody who is suffering from it, or someone who is being locked down at home and has no support around them. And that we can also consider a trauma. Trauma is also times, for example, your loved one just passed away, or something like an abuse or rape. All of these are included in trauma. And PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is a mental health condition that follows trauma. So what happens is when a person goes through a traumatic experience, usually the mind will adapt to it. The mind will understand, okay, this is an experience, it's a one-off thing, and they will begin to neutralize and find ways to cope. PTSD is when, after a long period of time, it doesn't get better. It's where the person feels constantly having severe anxiety, uncontrollable thoughts about the event, flashbacks, nightmares. There's even psychosomatic disorders. So, for example, some people with chronic pain around them, but they don't know why. It might also be caused by some trauma in the past. And so a lot of people go through traumatic events, but they begin to cope. So let's look a little bit more about trauma. So as I said, this trauma is a deeply distressing and disturbing experience. So there is actually what we call the big T trauma and the small t trauma. So what is this two big T and small t's? So the big T trauma is the things that we usually associate with PTSD: natural disasters, terrorist attacks, war, rape, sexual assault, abuse, physical or emotional, accidents that happen right in front of you. These are big traumatic events that doesn't really happen all the time. It is the stuff that catch you off guard in a very, very distressing way. But what we want to focus on in today's session is really the small t trauma. So the small t trauma are, for example, interpersonal conflicts, infidelity, so when a person cheats on you, a divorce with a spouse, extended relocation, a person being asked to go to a different country and is all alone for many years without support, legal troubles. I'm not sure if you have been through a legal process, but if you have been, you would know how difficult it is to go through all the court and all those legal documents and the processes, and that can be quite traumatic. We also can talk about financial difficulties. That's also one big thing. So a lot of times, people who experience the big T trauma, they are the ones where they know something is wrong. And after a while, they might go and seek help from someone. But small t traumas are the ones where it's the invisible things, the things where people just feel that they are so stressed about their environment, their situation. They feel that they are spiraling out of control, but they don't know why. And today I'm here to basically talk to you about this, is that everybody and anybody can develop, can experience trauma. A trauma is not what you look for, but a trauma is something that happened to you. And when that happens, if you don't get enough help, you don't get the right help, you might go into a spiral of anxiety, depression, insomnia. All of those different kind of conditions usually come very closely with all these traumatic events. All right, so let's just go into trauma for a little while. So what does trauma, what kind of symptoms would a person get when they have this trauma or PTSD? So some of it, for example, the first one is re-experiencing symptoms. So let's say if a person experienced something like a car accident and they saw the accident happen right in front of them, where they can see the person that's in the accident flew out and there was blood all around, and that's really traumatic. And so what happens to the person is eventually, every single day, they might have flashbacks about the particular scene, the most traumatic scene that happened. They might have nightmares that may or may not correlate straight away to the event. There may be unwanted intrusive thoughts, uncontrollable thoughts. There might be anxiety. Usually that's the case. People feel anxious all the time. They feel very stressed, very irritable, very angry, aggressive. And they have all these outbursts where they can't control what they say, they can't control how they feel, and they feel very guilty after the outburst. There's also sleeping, concentrating problems. And the third one, we look at avoidance. That's a big one. A lot of people, once a trauma incident happens, they avoid everything around the trauma. If an accident happened in this road, somehow or other, whether it's conscious or unconscious, they will find a way to avoid that road and go somewhere else. If the accident happened in a big truck, they will avoid in all the ways possible, avoid big trucks. And that avoidance It's the kind that it just comes in where it's an unconscious thing. People just say, okay, I don't feel like going there. I don't want to go there. I'll just pick another road. It might not be a conscious thing. And the last, if you look at the last quadrant, negative thinking, people who have trauma or experienced trauma in the past would have a lot of negative thoughts, much more than usual. It's also very possible that people go and have suicidal thoughts. It's very normal for people to feel numb, detached, and very self-critical, and find that they can't even enjoy themselves. They can't even enjoy the company of people around them. Those are all very normal symptoms of trauma and PTSD. So as I said, it's very normal for a person after trauma to feel afraid, overwhelmed, sad, stressed, angry for many weeks after the traumatic experience. And most of the time, these emotions will fade. But however, if after one full month, after a few months, you're still continuously affected by that traumatic event and have all the symptoms that I talk about, or even some of the events, some of the symptoms that I talk about, then we would strongly recommend you to seek some form of help. All right, so before we go even deeper into this, is there any questions at all from the floor? Hugo, are you there? All right, so
Yes,
perhaps.
I'm
Yes.
right here.
Yeah, so I saw that you went off for a while and you came back.
Yes, indeed. I think the line was pretty unstable just now, but I got it fixed right now, so I think it should be good for the rest of this.
Wonderful. Is there any questions before we go further into the presentation?
Okay, just a quick shout out to the viewers that are still watching this. Christina, Jasnoden, Bunny, Nika, Melissa, Shil, Rasigan. Welcome, welcome. I can see Rasigan, you're from Indonesia. Melissa from Malaysia. Amo from Philippines, San Fernando City, La Union, Philippines. So I think that is a great practice. So if you're watching this, especially on the main page, so make sure do put your names and where are you from in the comment section, so that we know where are all the viewers coming from, so that I can give a shout out to your name. I think a lot of our viewers right now are still learning this for the very first time, Shuee, about what is trauma, what is the big T, small t that you have mentioned earlier. So I think right after your presentation, they might be able to structure a more relevant question.
No problem.
So I will get back to you. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Hugo, and welcome to all of you who are watching right now. And so let me go on with my presentation then. So as I said, if you find that you have experienced some sort of trauma in the past and it is sort of like affecting you on a daily basis, or you sort of just don't feel right, sometimes you feel aggressive, you feel sad, you have outbursts of tears, and you can't control the emotions within you, you can't control that stress and anxiety, then please seek help. And so let's talk a little bit about who you can seek help from. So I apologize that the words are running a little bit off, but let me just run you through this. So the first one on the left, who you can seek help from, are psychiatrists. So a lot of people in my profession, they always ask me the question, Shuee, what's the difference between a psychiatrist, a psychologist, and There's so many other professionals in mental health. So what's the difference? So let me tell you what's the difference. But basically, you can seek help from psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors, therapists, any kind of therapists out there. So psychiatrists are the people who are certified. They have the knowledge, the background, the certification to prescribe medications and to do diagnosis. So what that means is when a person has a problem with mental health, it can be anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, ADHD, any of those mental health illness that you can find out there. So when they go to a psychiatrist, the psychiatrists have the tools and the knowledge to help you to diagnose the person and see, okay, this person has 1, 2, 3, 4 different kind of mental health illness at what kind of level, whether it's mild, severe, or it's medium, moderate. And the second group of people are what we call the clinical psychologists, the counselors, and the psychotherapists. So who are these people? Clinical psychologists, usually they're able to diagnose as well, but they are unable to give you medications. So the same thing is if a person goes there and meet a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, they can give you a lot of questionnaires, the way you speak, the way you talk about your experiences. They'll be able to tell you what kind of problems or what kind of illness, mental health illness you might have. And nowadays, a lot of clinical psychologists, what they also do is they do counseling. So because usually after they diagnose, they don't just stop there. They go ahead and be a counselor and help a person through different sorts of ways of thinking. So a very common therapy that counselors do is called the CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. So what that is basically using your cognitive, your thinking, and your behavior, your actions to change how you feel. All right, to change the emotions, to make you get better from the whatever illness that you're facing. Another one that is very popular is ACT, acceptance commitment therapy. So it's basically accepting whatever has happened and move on from there. I mean, this is very generic. You can ask me more questions if you're interested in it later on, or you can Google it to really find out what are all these kind of therapies that people use. And so I put a slash there, counselor / psychotherapist, because psychotherapists are also sort of like counselors, so they're sort of different. So a psychotherapist usually can also do, like, it's also a counselor, but a counselor might not be a psychotherapist. So what's a psychotherapist? A psychotherapist is a professional that really are invested in a particular way of helping a person through their mental health problems. So for example, it can be a psychoanalysis method. So I'm not sure if the audience, have you heard about Freud, Sigmund Freud, or all of the psychotherapists out there? So Sigmund Freud was a psychoanalyst. So what he does, or what psychoanalysts believe, is that all the problems, every problem that a person has stems from the past. So to be able to get through whatever problems that they are facing, the person needs to go back to the past and resolve the past issues. Then everything else will come into place and things will start moving. That's what they believe. There's other psychotherapists that use solution-focused therapy, where they believe that everything that you need to get better is in the solution. You don't need to go back to the past. You just need to see the solution. You need to focus on the future. So there's a lot of different kind of psychotherapies out there. And I urge you, if you're interested, just go and Google psychotherapists and you can find all the details about them. And the last segment is clinical hypnotherapists, which is me and all the other, I would say, couple of hundred professionals in Malaysia. It's a very niche market in Malaysia right now. But in countries like the UK, the US, it's a pretty big segment. It's growing bigger and bigger. So what does a clinical hypnotherapist do? So put in place is, we are a psychotherapist that uses hypnosis as a tool to help people get better. So most of hypnotherapists, we believe that there is a multiple approach in helping a person. We call that eclectic approach, which means the person in front of you, the client, has all sorts of problem, all sorts of background. You might need to bring them to the past, or you might need to bring them to the future, or you might just want to be here in the present and practice some mindfulness to help them. There's so many different ways, and you can't say one size fits all. So hypnotherapy, what we do is we learn through all the different psychotherapy, and on top of that, we learn how to hypnotize people. So it sounds a bit fancy, hypnotize people, right? But I can assure you, it's nothing like what you see on TV. It's nothing like what you watch on YouTube, those stage hypnotists, where people go and do stupid things on the stage. That's not what clinical hypnotherapy is, and that's not what we do. So let me give you a bit of a background on what is hypnotherapy. So hypnotherapy is it's basically, as I said, a therapy where we look through the person's problem and we use all our different kinds of therapy methods to help them on a conscious level, just like any other psychotherapist and counselor. And what we do in addition is we bring them into the state of hypnosis, we hypnotize them, and we work with them on the subconscious, unconscious level. And when I say that, it doesn't mean that the person completely has no idea what's happening, because that's not really the case. They actually know what's happening. But what's different is, some of you might not know that everybody, a person, has a conscious mind and an unconscious mind. The conscious mind is basically 10% of who you are. Your critical thinking, your judgments. For example, now I'm talking on the screen and your mind goes, okay, can I trust what Shuee says? Can I basically, whatever she say, is it rational? You're sort of like criticizing, judging in a good way or bad way. And so that's what the rational mind does. But there's 90% of us that is being governed by the unconscious mind, or what people like to call the subconscious mind. And because it is 90% of who you are, it's a huge part of who we are. But a lot of us, we go through our daily life not really using the subconscious mind. We use completely only our conscious mind to help us go through our daily struggles, to go through and achieve our goals. And so what hypnotherapists do is, when we bring you into the state of hypnosis, when we hypnotize you, basically what happens is your 10% goes to rest. Your 10% that is always critical, always judging, always giving you the excuses, goes to rest. And whatever the therapists feed to you, that goes straight into the 90% of who you are. And that, your subconscious mind, can help you reach your goals, whether it's overcoming a traumatic experience or going forward in reaching whatever goals that you have in life. Okay, and so that's the difference. So psychiatrists, as a recap, psychiatrists gives medication and that's it. Clinical psychologists, counselors, psychotherapists, they usually work with only the conscious mind and trying to start a change from the conscious mind in hopes that that triggers into the subconscious mind. Whereas a hypnotherapist, we work with the conscious and the subconscious mind together, so the effects can be quite powerful. All right. And so you can seek help from any one of them. Like, psychiatrists, no matter it's psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors, therapists, we all have the qualification and we all have the expertise to help you go through the traumatic experience that you have, that you had in the past, or whatever symptoms that you're facing in today. Other than seeking professional help, what else can you do? So one obvious thing is talk to somebody you trust and let it out. A lot of times we get all this trauma and we just keep it inside of us. We just bottle it in. And when I say this small little trauma, it's not just, I gave you a few examples earlier on, infidelity, divorce, financial issues, but there's also breakups. Like a lot of us go through relationship breakups, whether it's with a partner or even with a friend or even with a family, a relationship where it tears apart. And any strong relationship being tear apart, that is also considered a trauma. Somebody that you're so close to all day, every day, suddenly they turn their back on you, they say goodbye, and you will be there thinking to yourself, what did I do wrong? And all the flashback of the memories just come back. Those are all things that we consider as trauma. And a lot of times what people do is they feel stressed, they feel that they can't cope, but they don't want to tell the people around them because they feel it's a sign of being weak. Or they feel that if I tell my friend, if I tell this and that, are they judging me? Will they be able to help me? Most of the time you might say, no, they won't really help me. They probably give me some advice I don't want to hear. So if your friends are really in that sense, then go seek professional help. But if you have some people that you can trust, we do recommend that you seek help in terms of just talk to them, let it out, cry. If you need to shout, some people say take a pillow and just shout to the pillow. Whatever works, let it out. All right. And what else can you do? Relax, reduce the stress, reduce the tension. Because when a person goes through trauma, what really happens is that they have this stress response, what we call the fight or flight. Or the third response that we usually don't really talk about is the freeze response, where when something really bad happens, a person doesn't know how to face the thing. A person doesn't know whether they have the strength to fight it, or should they just avoid and go far away from it, or what should they do? And if the person is always in the same state, there's no solution to the problem, the trauma that they are facing, the stress will accumulate. That's why a lot of people feel so stressed in their body, whether it's on their shoulders, their neck, their body aches, IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. A lot of people just go through all this stress every single day and doesn't release them. So me as a hypnotherapist, when I see all my clients, 90% of them haven't been relaxing for a long time. And you will know if you don't relax, you will know that your body is stressed. You will know when you can't have a good night's sleep. When you sleep at night and every few hours you wake up, or you feel that you never go into a deep sleep, or you feel that, you're always agitated, you're always looking out for whatever it is, that means you're stressed. So learn how to reduce that stress and that tension. Learn how to relax yourself. I always teach my clients how to do self-hypnosis to relax. But if you don't know how to do that, you can use mindfulness. You can do meditation, deep breathing exercises. All of them are very, very useful to helping a person relax. So I'll just have a little bit of a pause right there, and let me just ask Hugo. Hugo, what do you usually do to relax yourself, or do you usually just go through the stress and be tense all the time?
I think to keep myself relaxed, for example, in a tense situation, I think one of the first thing that everyone can try is, of course, a proper breathing method. In fact, if you have been in any yoga classes, there are a few recommended different breathing methods for different situations. That is something that usually I would try. Secondly, another thing that I would love to do is to always reframe the situation. Usually we are stressed because we felt that the situation is not within our control, or that something has gone terribly wrong, that we can't salvage it. However, for most of the cases, that's not the case. We simply need to investigate deeper. And once we understand it better, it naturally subsides. It gets better. So it's a matter of reframing how he looks at things. I remember Dr. Wayne Dyer, he has this quote: if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So that would be another way to look at it. I think perhaps another great thing is that if you have an emotional regulation process, I know a lot of people have different methods to do it, but if you have that would be very helpful.
So, amongst all the different methods that you talked about, which is the one that you go to all the time to just release the stress? Because you as a speaker, you have all that stress that, business stress, you have your speaking stress, I don't know what other stress you have. So which is your favorite to relax yourself?
I would say I would usually try to do all three of it. Breathing always comes first. Personally, I'm into martial arts as well. So when there is such a time, it could help, because if we look at it, therapy or healing comes in many different forms. And we just need to choose one, that fits us. For some of you, maybe Shuee sings. I don't know if Shuee sings, maybe some people sing to release their stress,
Yes.
Some people play the drum. Some people, just have to be around their pets, and for me, it's always movement, breathing, being present, reframe the situation. And I have a couple of sets of different emotional regulations process that I go through. So I just need to run through that. It doesn't take a lot of time, It could be a 5-minute thing, just to get yourself grounded and get going again. Yeah. And it gets better with practice. Some people try it for the first time. It's like, no, it doesn't really work, Hugo. But nothing works for the first or 2 times. You got to try it 10, 20 times. You just need to get it ingrained in ourselves. Yeah, so that's what I go to. How about you, Shuee? What do you do?
Myself, I do a lot of deep breathing relaxation techniques. I do hypnosis almost every day. I mean, I do it for my clients, but I do it for myself as well. And that is the most relaxing experience. So, but that's right. Hugo basically shared quite a few different ways to relax, and all of them are very useful techniques to relax. And the most important one, or what I usually teach all my clients, is what Hugo says just now as well: deep breathing. So there's so many different ways of deep breathing out there, but deep breathing works every single time. Because what happens is when you do deep breathing, everything, like, you get enough air into your lungs, and that basically transfers, and the blood basically flows better in your whole body, and that basically allows whatever to be stuck to be able to flow again. And why it doesn't work is usually because the mind is not there. The mind is not focusing on breathing. The mind is basically, oh, this problem that is there, oh, my boss, oh, what will people say, oh, this, oh, that. And all those things that are crossing your mind are the things that are stopping you from being able to relax. So usually when I say do deep breathing exercises, there's many different types, but usually those, the ones that I teach are the ones where you have to count. So one simple one is what called the soft belly breathing. It's a simple technique of 4-4-4. Breathe in to the count of 4, hold your breath for the count of 4, and breathe out for the count of 4. And so what people do is when they start thinking of things, I say, don't allow your mind to come and think of all sorts of stressors. Focus on counting, focus on breathing. As you focus on breathing in 1, 2, 3, 4, hold your breath, 2, 3, 4. Release the breath, 2, 3, 4. And you keep thinking of those numbers and keep focusing on the relaxation. Deep breathing works every single time. And so, that is one of the things: reduce the stress, reduce the tension. And what else can you do? What I say is create routines. Routine for you to get away from the problems that you're facing. So the first one right there is what I usually get my clients to do: journaling. So journaling has so many proven scientific benefits to help us regulate the mood, to help us feel better, to help us gain clarity in what we like, what we are doing to ourselves. So there's all sorts of journaling methods. That's what I sometimes ask my clients to do: morning pages, where you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is just write everything and anything that crosses your mind, and you fill up 3 full pages. That's very helpful for people with depression, helpful for people who can't connect with their subconscious mind or has been blocking out the own voices inside of them for way too long. Morning pages work very well. You can just Google up morning pages and you can find it. Journaling, for example, is also at night. Sometimes I would get clients to write down 3 to 5 things every single day that they feel grateful for, thankful for, or something that they feel happy about. Because the thing with all this happiness or gratitude moments is, whenever you think of something that you're happy, a happy memory or exciting memory, a memory where you feel grateful because of someone who did something for you, or you feel happy because you achieved something. When you start thinking of all those things, your body basically releases dopamine, or happy hormones within your body, and that makes you feel good about yourself. And once you think of 1, 2, and 3 things, your mind begins to turn from a negative zone to sort of like a neutral to positive zone. And that can keep going on and have a snowballing effect, which is very, very interesting. So journaling definitely is a very good routine that you can have to release that trauma, release that stress in your body, release that stress in your mind. And the other thing is exercising. Well, a lot of people, these are pretty basic things. So basically exercising, sleep, and eating healthily. So all these 3 things are very, very basic things that we talk about in almost every well-being class, anywhere, basically, people always tell you, eat healthy, sleep well, exercise, and you have a good life. So those are basically proven. I mean, scientifically, there's many studies showing how effective are just having, half an hour to 1 hour of exercise a day. Or even if you can't do exercise or you hate exercising, just go out for a walk. Pick somewhere outdoor. I mean, now with COVID, you got to be careful, but as whenever possible, find somewhere outdoor where you can just breathe in a little bit of fresh air, have a little bit of that sun shining upon you, and that would really help. Eating healthily also can help very well, because most of us, we know a person in depression usually lose their appetite. They can't eat much food. And the same goes to trauma. When a person is getting PTSD, because of all the things are here, it's so stressful. And when it's so stressful, the body, all the attention goes to all these tense muscles. And so then less energy or less blood flow goes through to your organs. And that's why you don't have that urge to eat. You don't have the urge to eat healthy. And so having good sleep and eating plenty of good food, or I mean like healthy food, is really, really important in helping a person get through or overcome trauma in that sense. All right, so I've come to an end of my presentation, so I'm open to just answering any questions, whether it's from Hugo or from the floor. Any of you have any questions, just post it in. And just on the side, you can basically see my company logo, Youth-Therapy. Our tagline is your everyday therapist, and what we hope to be is we hope to normalize therapy, because we feel that there's way too many people having stress. And all these people having stress, they don't know who to go to, and they don't want to go to a psychiatrist. They don't want to go to a psychologist, because they feel that there's so much stigma to it. If I go to a psychiatrist, it means I'm crazy. It means I'm very unwell. And all of these are in the past. If you look at people in the UK, in the US, basically almost everyone has a therapist, because having a therapist is just basically having a professional to listen to your problems and give you some potential ways for you to get out of your problem in a healthy way. So what we hope to do in Youth-Therapy is normalize therapy, so that everyone can just be good and happy to see a therapist and release all that stress and trauma inside of them. So if you're interested in hypnotherapy, you can just go on to the link right there, www.u-therapy.com. That's our number right there if you want to WhatsApp us, and that's our Facebook and IG. So yes, back to you, Hugo.
All right, let us get the screen. Let us get the screen back. And there we go. All right. So I think it has been a fantastic presentation by Shuee. In fact, it's more comprehensive than what I initially thought, because I've looked at the slides earlier, and I thought it's going to be like, it's going to be quick. But then you have actually covered a lot of grounds. You have covered everything from the definition of trauma to what is hypnotherapy, to what are some of the solutions, that we can try with. And I love that the fact that you end it with the tagline of Youth-Therapy is your everyday therapist. And this is very important, because it goes right in the face of the stigma that we are facing right now. The problem is not because people don't have problem. The problem is because people don't dare to admit that they have problem, and they don't dare to seek help, because people will think that they have a problem. But of course they have. Everyone has problems. It doesn't matter whether you are a therapist like Shuee, or you are a trainer that deals with salespeople like me. Even the trainers need help. Everyone needs help. Even the gurus need a guru.
Yeah. And so to talk about that, even therapists, all of us, psychologists, counselor therapists, we all go to seek therapy. We have clinical supervisors that we talk to, because everyone, as what Hugo says, everyone has stress. But whether you know how to deal with that stress is one thing. Sometimes we get so bogged down in whatever we know, in our responsibility, in our mission in life. and we just put ourselves in the second priority. We say that, okay, I'm going to help all these people. I'm going to do my job very well. I'm going to portray, I'm going to help my business. I'm going to help my company. I'm going to help my staff. I'm going to help my teammate. I'm going to help my family member. I'm going to help my best friend. And a lot of times we just shove all our problems down to the deepest place. And after a while, imagine it like a bottle, and you're just stuffing it all the way up until here, and suddenly you can't deal with it anymore and just burst out, and that's where you go into a big either a depressive phase or anxiety phase, and that's really not ideal. What if you can always, every time you reach a certain threshold, you find someone you let go, you pour it out, and then you go, you start fresh. There will be a very nice feeling inside of you, and not just feeling good, you will also feel motivated and to reach your goal.
Very true, very true. So I think there's a little bit of a mindset shift that is needed. That's also the reason why we are live right now. So for those of you who are still watching with us, I've been seeing anything from 30 to 50 people at any one time watching us. I would like to thank you for following us for the past over half an hour, and despite a little bit of technical difficulties at the beginning, and you're still with us. So do remember, you can always send us your questions. I know a lot of you wants to send it like anonymously, so I kind of like reading your questions right now. I won't reveal your name. You can always send it to us. Okay, so let us take some questions, Shuee.
All right.
Okay, this one is a long one. Let's start with something more vanilla. Let me see. Okay, let's start with this comment, right, that I just received from one of our YANA ambassadors. She say, "I love her."
Thank you.
Well, that's not a question, but it's good to hear testimonials are coming in. So, all right. The next question is this from the Philippines. Can PTSD be prevented? Will it ever go away? And what will happen if I just don't do anything about it? Okay.
So the thing with it is, as I said earlier on, trauma is something that none of us want in our life. It's something that happened to us that is so disturbing, so distressing. So we can't prevent trauma. But when you say PTSD, it's if a person has trauma for an extended period of time and that doesn't go away, then we call it the PTSD, the post-stress traumatic disorder, right? So to prevent that is literally all the time make yourself feel stronger. So there's a lot of techniques out there to love yourself, to give yourself, to forgive yourself for whatever experience it was, whether it's something that you did wrong or whatever it is, or just give more compassion towards yourself, love yourself, and perhaps, as I said just now, all the things that relaxing yourself, releasing that stress in an appropriate way, talking to somebody about it, talking to either a professional or a friend, and doing all these things that are good. The journaling, it really does happen. So if you are really experiencing PTSD and it's been there for a while, I really recommend you seek someone professional, because if you don't do anything to it, basically it will be somewhere inside of you and it won't go away itself. No matter how many years, 5 years, 10 years, because what happens when trauma happens is when you see something traumatic happen in front of you, or something happen to you in personally, whether it's a physical abuse or let's say rape or sexual assault, anything like that, right? So when something bad happens to you, a lot of times our mind will kick in a defense mechanism or coping mechanism where whatever experience we have, we will shove it away. So you think of it as this is us, who we are, and all our memories, everything from our young, happy memories, stress memories, everything that is all integrated within our memory bubble. But the stress that was caused by the traumatic event, because it's so traumatic, usually it becomes a bubble by like by itself. So it's not integrated to the main frame. It is like pockets of trauma experience. And if you don't do anything about it, you'll continue living your life this way, but all these pockets will continue to affect you in an unconscious way. And that's really very important to know. It's because a lot of times our mind, when you have the coping mechanism, they automatically shuts away. It will block out all the bubbles so that you're not able to access them. So sometimes when you watch on dramas, TVs, movies, you can see how somebody just lives through their daily life and they have all these anger issues and have all these problems with, they can't form relationships, they always go into drug problems, and they realize that something actually happened when they were young, and they didn't know. That is basically something that was shut off their mind. That's because the mind has that capability of blocking out all those pockets of traumatic experiences. And if you don't do anything to it, it will stay that way and it will come back to you all the time, whether it's with your emotions or physical. We sometimes see people having what we call the psychosomatic illnesses, where they go to doctors 5-10 times, scan all their body from top to toe, and doctors say, you're fine, you have no problem, it's all in the mind. And where does that come from? It's because the mind basically shoves all that stresses, and the stresses can't be contained anymore, and it's basically creeping in via the physical symptoms in your body. So don't wait till that happens. Seek help before that happens. All right, so did I answer all three of them?
Yep, I hope the person from Philippines who asked this, I hope you get your answer from Shuee. If you have any follow-up questions, you can always continue to DM me. So right now, there is a very long question I've just posted in our public chat as well. So basically, this is a question on how do you handle a person. You see, if one thing we learned from the many live streams that we started since April this year, is that a lot of mental health challenges always link back to some sort of how do we deal with a personality or a person. You know, it's always a relationship problem. You know, so how do you handle a person who has narcissistic personality disorder? If he or she is part of your organization, where they just want to destroy you to get what he or she wants, how do you avoid or handle it, since that person is also under your group? So how do you deal with a team member, you know, who is going against you?
Yeah. Okay.
What advice will you give to such a person?
Okay. So the thing with narcissistic personality disorder is that they have basically lacking some sort of like a development in some part of their brains where they are unable to feel empathy for the people around them. They are always feeling for themselves, and whatever they want to achieve, they will make sure it achieves, whether if it's if they need to sabotage someone or if they need to, whatever it is, they will basically allow that to happen because the most important person is just themselves, right? And so if you know that a person has this narcissistic personality disorder, don't get affected by them. That's basically what I say, because it's not your problem, it's their problem. So they have a mental health issue. So if it's in your team, perhaps you can talk to someone in your organization to help them seek help, you know, allow them to go and seek therapy. And usually that will need to go to either a psychiatrist or a clinical psychologist. So even hypnotherapists, we don't really work with narcissistic personality disorders. But the first advice, talk to someone in your company so that you all can perhaps sponsor the person to go for therapy. Because if you don't do anything, if the person doesn't get help, the person won't ever get better. The second thing, take care of yourself, take care of your team members, because know it inside of you, it's not about you. No matter what the person says, he or she is unwell. So whatever unwell person says, if you take it into your heart, is it worth it? I mean, it's not the truth. So find validation, not just from your teammates that are not that person, but also from yourself. If the person says, oh, you're lazy, but you know that you're not lazy, don't let that person's words get into your mind. Guard yourself from them. Know from the beginning that that person has a mental disorder, and for you to for you to be able to function in that group or that the team with the person, all you have to do is perhaps you can just go one side in, one side out. Whatever the person says, just think it as a pinch of salt. Or perhaps you might want to once in a while, if you have a good rapport with the person, you might want to once in a while give a little bit of tips to them, say that, okay, this is the things that you are saying, and this is what I'm feeling, or, you know, this is what you can do a bit better. So don't say it in a very offensive way, because the person will then get very defensive, but maybe put it as like, you know, if I was that, I would perhaps do this or that. Just put it in a very gentle way if you have a good rapport. If you don't have a good rapport, then I mean, don't try to do that, because they'll get very nasty.
All right. I think, you know, we venture off, you know, somewhere a bit further, you know, on narcissism. At the same time, there is something that you can always check out, which is the dark triads in the psychology. We call it the people who are narcissistic or psychopathic, or they are Machiavellian, right? So they are usually people that say they are dishonest, they are manipulative, you know, they are disagreeable. So that is definitely something you can check on a bit more, you know, and, you know, basically you need to have some form of self-defense SOP against such persons, and they are always around, you know. Many people around us are definitely broken in one way or many ways. So learning to deal with different people is, in fact, a very important people skill. Okay. So I think there is something that you have raised just now during your answers, Shuee, is that you must guard yourself mentally from being affected from someone else. I think that is a question that a lot of people have in mind, right? They know they have to guard themselves, but they are unable to guard their mind from being affected by it. Why do you think, in your opinion, are some people so affected by what people say or do? And how would you deal with it?
Okay, thanks. That is indeed a very, very big and important question that most people, a problem that most people face. Before I even go into that, just a little bit of background. So all of us, every feeling, every emotion, every action that we do is usually guided by an inner belief, a belief about ourselves. And that belief that we have really deep rooted inside of us will affect what we focus on. And what we focus on will then create the emotion, and the emotion will guide us to do the actions that we do on a daily basis. And so for most people, what is really in there, it's that insecurity. Perhaps the insecurity has been formed since they were very young. You know, perhaps sometimes when as a baby they were crying for help and nobody come and you know, gave them the comfort. Maybe the insecurity is when they were growing up and then the attention gone away and they just try to keep wanting to get the approval from people around them. Maybe the insecurity came because they heard something harsh that was said to them in primary school, in secondary school, by cyberbullying or by actual bullying. So all these experiences that we have forms a sort of a self-belief inside of us. And for most people in this world, most people, what are the two main beliefs that we have are: we are not enough, we are not rich enough, we are not smart enough, we are not thin enough, we are not beautiful enough, we are not courageous enough. And so the list can go on and on and on. And it's always that feeling that I am never enough. And when the first belief that I'm never enough is there, it leads to the second belief, which is if I'm not enough, I won't be loved. Because all of us, what we want in our life is we want to be loved. Because love is that beautiful feeling that all of us yearn for. And so we always want to get love from the people around us, from our lover, from our family, from our mother, our father, our siblings, even from our friends, from our teachers. We always want that love. And when we don't have the love, we sort of like see that as approval. We want to always get the approval from someone to know that they love us. But the thing is, That's really a biased belief, because a person who loves you, let's say your mom that loves you unconditionally, doesn't need to approve of every single thing that you do, because not every single thing that you do is correct. Maybe you were just playing and then you broke her phone, and she started scolding you and she didn't give it approval. Does that mean that you're not being loved? No. But a lot of us, we think that approval means that love. Approval means acceptance. And we keep doing what everybody wants us to do. This person, this colleague asks us to do A, that colleague asks us to do B, and my own task is C, D, E, F, G. And what I do is I do everything, and I don't have time for myself because everybody is in priority. And so that's the important thing that we need to realize, is that what's our belief inside of us? What's that core belief that is making us do all the actions or feel all the misery that we are feeling? And so once you tune in and understand that limiting belief, then you'll be able to change that belief into something else that you want. And when you change and the narrative goes from I'm not smart enough, the narrative changes into I'm actually pretty good. You know, I've had A in my English before, and I've met so many successful people. I'm in this circle and I'm pretty successful. And so once you go from I'm not smart enough to I'm pretty successful, there's no way going back anymore, because you can't say I'm not smart enough if I'm successful. So once you be able to change that belief inside of you and really look at your reality, that's where things begin to change for you. That's when you get out of that insecurity, you get out of that negative limiting belief, and you start living your life in that 100% capacity.
You know, there are maybe two things, you know, that our audience should take away from Shuee sharing just now. Is number one is people equating love with approval. And I think that would be a root cause for many problems. You know, the behavior of approval seeking, you know, begins way when you are young, you know, right up to adulthood. And I think there's a stats that says that a lot of this mental illness often begins, you know, from our childhood, you know, some form of childhood experience. Forgot the stats, but it's probably 60, 70%, you know, depending on where they do the research and stuff. But I guess the lesson here is, you know, perhaps the way we interpret things, you know, has not been very accurate. And secondly, Shuee also mentioned that the need to rethink a lot of things, a lot of biases, you know, that we have in our mind, and limiting beliefs, of course. You know, our potential is only limited by what we believe it to be, you know, in many ways. And we often seek evidence on how we are not good enough, but we fail to see the other half of the glass, where although you are terribly bad at something, you are also awesomely good at so many things. You often punish yourself for things that you are bad at, but you don't give yourself enough credit on the things that you are so good at. You know, why are you so unfair to yourself? You know, that's the question. So I would love to take on more questions over here, which is this one is from Indonesia. So this should be the first question from Indonesia. So if you're watching this, if you are in a position that reminds us of the bad past that makes us stressed and afraid of it happening, what should we do at the time?
Okay, thanks for that question. Hi to people from Indonesia. Thank you for tuning in. So when so the question, basically, let me just make sure that I got the right question, is that the past experience is there, and what if you can't stop thinking of the past, right, Hugo?
Yep, correct.
Okay. All right. And so basically what happens is that if that bad past is affecting you now and you're feeling stressed and afraid of it, usually what happens is that you haven't gone over that bad past. You're still hanging on, and there's always, you know, it's either the feeling of anger, the feeling of hate, the feeling of sadness because you're being betrayed by someone, or there's that feelings of inadequate, or the guilt. So there's usually some sort of a very strong negative feeling that tied to the past. And because that past, that experience that you had was not dealt with, you never let it out. You never found a solution to it. You never, and that basically is what I call that bubble that you're in. It's basically one of the other bubbles out there that is never integrated to your life. That's why you feel that you got to avoid it. That's why you feel that every time you think of it, it becomes very stressful, very, very scary. So what should you do at that time? First thing is calm yourself down. Because a lot of times when you think of a bad past, you get very scared. Your heart rate will go all the way off the charts. You'll feel that your hands are getting sweaty. You can't really breathe correctly. So first thing you do, calm yourself down, do some deep breathing. Whether it's what I call the 4-4-4 soft belly breathing, or you can also do another breathing that I call the 3-6. So you breathe into the count of 3, you breathe out to the count of 6, and just repeat that for 1 to 2 minutes. So calm yourself down. Then the second thing is just tell yourself, whatever incident is in the past. So whatever's in the past will only allow whatever is the past will only be in the future if we allow ourselves to stay in that past. So once you realize that it's in the past, and you, instead of seeing it as something scary and afraid and fearful, perhaps you can start saying, what can you learn from the experience? How much have you grew? How much have you grown from the experience? And see that from that angle. But perhaps to do that, I would recommend seek some therapy, because as I said, I'm an advocate for everybody seeing a therapist, not because of business, it's because of that helps everyone really feel much better when you talk to a person, a professional person. So find someone that is able to help you shift that mindset, shift the beliefs. Because a lot of times we can't see our own limiting beliefs. We need a third party to make us realize, okay, actually these are the things that are stopping us. So find someone, talk it out, release that stress, and then change the mindset. So I usually tell my clients with PTSD is that, when you think of an experience in the past, it can be, in school where something really bad happened to you, or it can be a breakup, or it can be any bad experience. Usually when you think of a lot of bad experiences, you only think of it as a memory. There's no feelings attached to it. You probably feel, oh yeah, it was a bad time. I was like, things happened and it wasn't great. You kind of feel that meh feeling. But when you feel that the feeling is intense fear, an intense stress feeling, when you still get that, I feel like crying the moment I think of it. I feel that my whole body is shivering when I think of it. That is PTSD. It's not a normal trauma anymore. That means that something is outside and it's not integrated in your own processing in your brain. And so if you feel yourself in that position, when you think of a memory and it becomes very scary or very vivid in your mind and in your body, seek help.
So it's true, don't be shy to seek help, and if you have not tried a therapy, well, this year is a good time to try. And the thing is that when you have a fever, when you have cough, so many of us are so concerned and we rush to the nearby clinic to get some meds, to get some consultation. However, when you have a terrible trauma recurring, nightmares, you can't function efficiently in your work, you have a tremendous fear of phobias, or you are feeling super depressed. How come you think that you can solve it on your own? So is this some kind of discrimination between physical health and mental health? It just doesn't make sense. If for fever, cough, and flu, you go and rush to get a consultation, perhaps you can also consider the next time, if your hands are shaking, if you can't sleep, if you are stressed for days on no end, even if you try all the techniques that if you can't get out of it, then you should seek help. Better to get it cured fast before it lingers longer. Okay. So I'm taking another question. This one is from Malaysia. So the question is, individuals with depression often find it difficult to wake up and make the first move. What do you recommend for an individual to feel motivated?
Okay, so the thing with depression, if a person really has MDD, the major depressive disorder, then it's not just in the mind anymore. It's not when people say, I'm depressed, I'm sad, I'm not feeling good. It's not that. When you have really a depression episode, it's everything inside of you, all the neurochemicals are imbalanced, you don't have the right dopamines, you have all the stress cortisol coming out, and it's very, very natural for a person to feel that they do not have energy. So what if you don't have energy, what you do, you sleep it off. So that's the first thing you do. Instead of saying that I am depressed and I can't get out of bed, I want to be motivated, I want to be right there. If your body is in this level, you can't physically be up to this level. So that's why it's important to sort of like seek help to really understand where are you on this level. So there's a lot of free sort of like questionnaires online where you can see whether you are in a mild depression, moderate depression, or severe depression, right? So if you find yourself, after you do a self-assessment, that you're in the severe, the moderate to severe, that really is a big sign for you to go and seek help already, right? Because that is not just about your mind anymore, it's about everything. Brain, the physical thing is there. It's just like what Hugo said, the cough and the flu, you need medicine to calm it down. That's where you go to the psychiatrist. But if let's say you find yourself in the mild, all right, and you don't feel, it's not really that bad, but you feel that some days you don't have the energy to come up, you can't really go to work, you drag your feet to work, and you're just feeling overall a bad feeling around you, then what you can do is, first thing, make sure that you have something that you like to do, or something that you can, perhaps like something that you use to seek comfort in, whether it's music, art, some hobbies, talk to someone, gaming. I know that a lot of depression patients, when you are in the state, whatever that you used to like, usually you will not like to do it anymore. But if you just allow yourself to do it anyway, you just allow yourself to just experience it, perhaps sometimes that feeling might come back, especially when you're just in that mild depression. The second thing is all boiled down to, again, that mindset. If you're telling yourself that I am a depressed person, and a depressed person means that I can't get out of bed, that's what it's going to be like. Because whatever inner talk, whatever you talk to yourself, your subconscious 90% is listening. So imagine if you tell yourself that I'm depressed, and the 90% receiving it says, oh yes, this person is depressed, and depressed means don't get out of bed. Then what happens is the person will be lying on the bed the whole day. So how to motivate yourself is, first think of it as a phase. You are not a depressed person. You're having a phase of depressive episode that lasts only for a while. And that depressive episode might be because something has happened in your life, or multiple things has happened in your life, and you just can't cope for the time being. So just think of it first thing as, it's only a phase. I will get out of this phase very soon. And then tell yourself that multiple times, I'm going to get out of this phase. I'm going to get well. I'm going to be able to eat well. I'm going to do all these things. And just by telling yourself, that 90% will say, oh, hey, yes, that's something, that conscious mind is telling me this thing. Maybe I'm not really depressed, maybe I have another way out. And then your 90% subconscious mind will basically be helping you. You'll be thinking, okay, what can I do? Maybe I want to eat a bit better. Maybe I want to eat 2 meals instead of 1 meal. Maybe I want to sleep, what should I do? So let your body heal just by you telling yourself the right things in your mind.
Should we make an important distinction of being a depressed person versus being a person with depression? The necessity to disassociate ourselves, not to confuse our illness with our identity. That's very important. You might think like that is just a wordplay kind of thing, but it's not exactly a wordplay. Because once you have worked with enough people, whether you are a therapist, a trainer, or you are in HR, you begin to realize that a lot of problems comes from people believing that they are something. They are so into that identity that they believe, oh, I'm this identity, therefore this is what I can do, this is what I'm like. It can't be helped. Not true at all.
Not true at all.
Much of your identity is a matter of conditioning. Much of it is a matter of habits, behavior so ingrained, and if it can be conditioned into you, we can condition it out of you, so that is the first start to many transformation. So I think we are coming very close towards the end of our live stream today, but there is another question, because Shuee mentioned about hypnotherapy. The question is, right now we are in a COVID year. It's going to last a long time. Can hypnotherapy be done online? If yes, what are the limitations of doing it? Is it still effective? And there is also a question of, sometimes in, let's not say surgery, but let's say a dental procedure, where people usually use anesthesia, so that, is it possible, or is hypnosis also being applied some way, in the usual medical practices? What do you say, Shuee?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that question. It's finally in my field, and I'm very happy to answer that question. So before I talk about online therapy, let me just talk about hypnotherapy itself. So hypnotherapy has been around for a long, long time. It's not just a few hundred years, it's thousands of years ago, right? And the thing of it, it's never popularized because a lot of times, like the same time when hypnotherapy was sort of like founded, pharmacology sort of like began to start as well. And so a lot of people started saying, hey, medicine, we can basically monetize from it. So let's get people to take medicine and not do any of the hypnosis, not do the self-healing stuff. And that's when pharmacology went all the way up, and medicine went all the way up, and hypnosis went all the way down. So that's really, if you look at history, that's what happened. But in actual fact, what we realize is the mind is actually very, very powerful. It's very strong. And whoever that created us as human beings gave us everything to combat all the problems that we have in life. Think of it that way, right? And so if you look at it, in other countries nowadays, in European countries especially, there are a lot of hospitals that are actually using hypnotherapy as an alternative to anesthesia. And it's very, very powerful. So for example, in Berlin, there's a hospital that actually, it's a standard procedure where every time a person comes in and need to go to a surgery, they will ask, do you want anesthesia or do you want hypnosis? And so see how powerful. If a person wants to go with the natural way of doing it, they just need to go through a few sessions of conditioning the mind, and they'll be able to go through a whole surgery, whether it's in the hand or the brain or whatever it is, or a dental surgery without feeling pain. I repeat, without feeling pain. And that's the really interesting thing, is because the mind, how you perceive pain is really in your mind. If a person, for example, a person has a big cut, have you seen anyone, or have you experienced where you fell down or something happened to you and you didn't realize it and you didn't feel pain, and suddenly a person says, hey, you're bleeding. And then you look down and you saw the blood and you saw, so pain. And then you started having all the reactions of pain. It sounds familiar, right? It's because all the perception is not really what it is. It's really the thought of pain equals blood equals pain equals unbearable. And so once we are able to condition the mind to say that, hey, you're able to control yourself and you're able to, dissociate yourself from feeling all these physical things in your body, that's where we use hypnosis in surgery. And in Malaysia, we've actually had one of my mentors. His name is Dr. Alan. Dr. Alan So. He's the first person in Malaysia that did hypno anesthesia for clients. So he was in the surgery room and he basically hypnotized a client and went through a whole surgery, a carpal tunnel syndrome surgery, and the person completely, it was documented, the whole time the person didn't feel any pain at all. So we have hypnotherapists in Malaysia that does this already, but it's not popular. So in Malaysia, hypnotherapy is still not very regulated. So we as a in the MSCH and all the professionals in hypnotherapy is really going to the government all the time, providing them with all the proofs and the scientific records of how good hypnosis is. So that's on the way. So that's basically how powerful hypnosis is, and it can help basically change everything from surgery pain to chronic pain, any kind of pain. Okay. And to answer the other question on online therapy, so I used to be skeptical of online therapy. I was like, how can you do it online? Is it effective? And all my mentors or my teachers, we all sort of wasn't really sure until the pandemic happened, and we said, okay, there's no choice. Let's all try it. And what we realized is the effects, the impact is basically almost the same. Because I've been working with a lot of clients online. I have clients in Singapore, in Malaysia, and they come to me and they see tremendous shift in the problems that they are facing after 1-2 sessions. I have clients that come to me after one session online and they feel so much better. And they say, this really works. But there's a few catches. If you want to do online therapy, the first thing is you need to have stable internet. So usually the therapy side will have pretty good internet. So it's your side. You need to make sure that you have stable internet. If not, you will be quite interrupted. The second thing is you need to have a private space. If you're living in an environment where kids will open your door and come in, or when there's no privacy, you live with somebody around you, you can't really share your thoughts with the person inside, with the therapist. You'll basically be hiding because you're scared that people around you are judging you. So that can't happen. So if you have stable internet and you have a private environment, you can try online hypnotherapy and it is effective.
Amazing, amazing. I think a lot of people are not aware of the solutions, mainstream or alternative, that is available to treat their mental health. And there's been a lot of talks about mental health, and it always almost only stop at the stress part of it. It's just the stress talk. Okay, mental health, the stress talk. It's either the stress talk or the crazy people talk, And you never quite get past that. And if you ask the regular person on the street, what methods do you have to deal with your mental or emotional challenges? They often have this, sleep more, eat well, all of those are fine, all those are fine. But it exists, it never appears to them that science have advanced so much for the past several decades. Right now, we actually have proven systems, methods. It's like a whole shopping mall for you to choose from. But they don't know it exists. So that's the very reason why today we have Shuee here, the founder of Therapy, and a clinical hypnotist, with us today, as a hypnotherapist, is to show you and to share with you what hypnosis can do, and why you need help and where you can find help. So as
Can I add one thing, Hugo? Sorry. So please, because just now you basically talked about hypnotists and hypnotherapists. I mean, you sort of wrong.
Correct.
Yeah. I just want to clarify so that our audience know, because hypnotherapy is such a niche field. So a lot of people you probably wouldn't have heard about this much. So there's a difference between a hypnotist and a hypnotherapist and a clinical hypnotherapist. It's all different, yeah?
Yes.
A hypnotist is a person that knows how to hypnotize a person, that's it. So they can learn from anything, basically from a book, from online, from I don't know, videos and anywhere, and they can basically, as long as they can hypnotize a person, they call themselves a hypnotist. Right? So they can't do anything related to clinical stuff. They can't really help you with your mental issues. They can only hypnotize you into a state where you're so relaxed and that's it. All right. The second one is a hypnotherapist. So a hypnotherapist usually is people who are trained, but they are trained perhaps to just help people relax and help people deal with the issues, but they can't deal with any clinical stuff. So when I talk about depression, anxiety, trauma, all these things a hypnotherapist cannot help with. This one, you need a clinical hypnotherapist. That's why that's a distinction. And a lot of times, hypnotherapy has this stigma tied to it because there are some sort of like hypnotists or hypnotherapists out there, but it's not fully qualified. So they basically got their degree, or they got their qualification from a 5-day course or a 3-day course. And it's important that you know that your therapist is someone that actually gone through a good amount of training, know what they're doing, and they're actually registered with some professional societies. Because if they have it, then at least you have the assurance that they are legit in that sense. So make sure if you ever seek therapy, make sure you know what qualifications the person have and you can trust the person. And I always say, whether you choose hypnotherapy or you choose any form of counseling, psychology, or any kind of therapy, right? Find a therapist that you feel comfortable with. It's not about their qualifications. Qualification is one thing that basically makes them legit. But the most important thing is your rapport. Can you speak to the person? Can you open up to the person and feel that you're completely not being judged? Can you completely feel that you feel comfortable with the person in front of you, and you feel that you have so much trust in the person that the person can help you with whatever problems that you have? So I always recommend, even to my own clients, I said, go around, meet a few different therapists and see who you like the best. It's not I go to you, I need to go with you the whole way. No, it doesn't work that way. Find someone that you like, find someone that you trust, then you can see the big change in yourself. Back to you.
Awesome. So glad we dive into that. That's exactly what we need, because the stigma around being a hypnotherapist, people have a lot of misconceptions. So glad that we tackled that right before we end this. So for your final concluding statement, Shuee, what is your final message? Oh, okay, we actually have a question. Wow, at this time. Okay, we'll take this one, Dian. How hypnotherapy works if the client is not ready and reject it?
Okay, so the thing with therapy is, if a person doesn't want to get better, therapy will not work, because what we do is talk therapy, right? We're just talking to you. If you're not ready for it, I won't force you into it. So that's the thing. A lot of times when I feel that my client is not ready, I usually prep them to get ready. Usually when a person is not ready is because they have fears. What if I can't get better after I try this therapy? What if I get better, I can't deal with the problem, like new problems? What if when I go past this particular problem, I don't know, I start to, there's a lot of fears. I can't think of one right now, but there's a lot of fears in that. And usually what I do with my clients is I tackle those fears first. I bring away all those things that are dragging them down so that they want to do it. Because the thing is, every human being will want to be successful. Everybody wants to achieve something in their life. But the thing is, when they compare themselves to their friends, to people who are successful, they feel that they can never be there. And the anxiety of I can never be there is big enough to stop them from trying. And they say, if I don't try, I will never fail. So let me not try. If I don't go through this, then I will never get to know whether I can or can't. So it's avoidance. And if you avoid that for 1 year, fine. If you avoid for 10 years and 50 years down the road, you will probably regret it. Right? So if you're not ready, perhaps it's important, like you and your therapist will dwell in and see what are the fears. Why are you not ready? And only after that, when you dealt with all the fears and you feel good about it and you say that, okay, I want this particular thing in my life, whether it's I want this $1 million or I want to be able to be a famous person in this industry, or I want to be able to give back to the society, whatever it is that you want to do. When you have the confidence that you can go through it and you take away all the fears, then whatever that goal that is there, you will want to achieve it. I can pretty much assure you will want to achieve the goals that you set in life for yourself.
All right, I hope that answered your question, Dian. As always, if you have more questions, you can always email Shuee. I will send you the email address so that all of you can reach out to Shuee. And also do remember to follow Shuee on Therapy, you know. And if you are in Malaysia and if you need to, but in fact, if you are anywhere around this world, you know, right now it's online, and as Shuee has explained, it is possible, you know. Okay, so before we end this, we have this YANA tradition where we do an OK hand sign using our right hands up, you know, just for the photo op, right? So to signal that it is okay to not be okay. Okay, so our technical guys will take a quick photo by the count of 3, 2, 1. Okay, there we go.
Wonderful.
All right. So, any last words before we end our live stream?
Yeah. So last words is that one of my coaches once said that life is the C between the B and the D. Life is the choice between birth and death. So basically, everything in life is a choice. Everything that is ahead of you, everything that you do. A lot of times people will think that, you know, I have no choice. This is the situation. I have no way out. And that is the biggest trap of your mind, because when you say that I have no choice, you put yourself in a place where you're not in control anymore. You are reactive, and you can only allow whatever to happen to you, and that can be quite bad in that sense. So always remember, life is the C between the B and the D. You can make all the choices for you to feel better. And one of the choices is, if you feel that trauma and you feel that PTSD, seek for therapy and get it out of your system.
All right. With this, thank you for spending the time this evening with us and our audience across Southeast Asia. I'm sure you have enlightened a few minds, and many of us have learned many new things. With this, once again, thank you to Shuee from all of us from YANA Southeast Asia Mental Health Initiative. With this, everyone who is watching this, thank you once again. You can always reshare this video and rewatch this video. Share it to people that you care about. Share it to people that you love. So with this, everyone, take care, good night, and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.